your business is growing, you're adding to your team, and you want to bring on a VA, a virtual assistant. I am your woo-woo friend Maria, who just happens to be a lawyer for coaches, healers, content creators, and online businesses. And I am going to walk you through 8 little boxes to check when you are bringing on a virtual assistant. Let's get into it. The first thing to think about is, where is she located? Now, this is maybe not necessarily a legal thing, you might ask. Well, it kind of is, because if someone is overseas, it makes me pause, because we don't know how well your contract with your VA is going to be enforced if that person is overseas. So just be aware of where they're located and the laws that might apply that counteract the laws that apply in the US. Thing 2, are you hiring the VA through a service? There are a lot of great services out there that pair really skilled VAs, virtual assistants, with women business owners or solopreneurs or business owners in general. When you're going through a service like that, we want to know what the default terms are. So there might be something that you signing on as a client of these services, but what are the rules that will apply to your relationship with your VA? Are there any built-in rules, or do you need your own contract? Which brings me to thing number 3, confidentiality. It's very important that you know there are no default confidentiality rules here in the US. If you have confidential information and you are working with someone, you need a confidentiality agreement or an NDA or something in place that has confidentiality terms in it to make sure that person keeps your information confidential. So that's something to remember. There are no default confidentiality rules. So you want something in writing with that VA, regardless of whether you're hiring her directly or through a service, to make sure and protect that confidential information. Thing number 4, protecting your logins and your systems. And this can mean passwords and using a good password tool, but it can also mean having some legal terms around accessing those systems. So making sure they keep their logins confidential or using a tool like LastPass is one thing, but making sure that they're aware of what they can and can't do when they're inside of your systems is another thing. Number 5, you knew I was gonna say this, IP ownership. IP, of course, is intellectual property, your beautiful, creative, intangible property, and maybe your VA is creating assets for you. Graphic designs, text, blog posts, social media captions, whatever it is, photographs. Ideally, you would be very clear, again, in a written document, that anything that the virtual assistant creates for you is your intellectual property, not theirs. 6, I want to talk about minimums, and that is there any minimum amount of time that you are signing on for when you enroll, when you take on this VA as part of your team? In other words, do you have to use a certain block of hours in order to enter into a contract with this person? That's certainly something that you need to be aware of. Number 7, money, honey. When is payment due? Is it something that's going to be automatically withdrawn? Is it something where she's going to invoice you and show a number of hours? And what do you do if you don't necessarily agree with those hours? How does invoicing work? How does payment work? You need to think about that and figure out the processes and the language in your contract that speaks to that. Finally, number 8, the scope of the work the virtual assistant is doing for you. VAs can do all kinds of things, from purely administrative to marketing to social media to content repurposing. So it's very important in the scope section of your agreement or in the scope discussion that you have with your VA that you are super crystal clear on the work, the scope of the work that she is going to be doing with you. So we went through 8 things to think about when you are bringing on a VA. Here, really quickly, here are those 8 things again. Where she's located, any default terms that exist if you're using a service to bring on that VA, confidentiality rules, protecting your logins and your systems, IP ownership over what the VA creates, being clear on any minimum hours required, when payment is due and how invoicing is going to work, and the scope of what the VA is doing for you. I hope that helps. Good luck bringing on a VA. It's such an exciting time in a business owner's life when you get to start delegating these things. And I'll see you next time. Hey, head to thelegalapothecary.com for my free workshop. It's 10 minutes long, and watch me walk through a website and pick out the 5 legal hotspots that I see when I look through my own clients' websites. You can pull up your website as we go along. Again, that's thelegalapothecary.com.